Starting a stream. Hello, hello. Just checking it. 1, 2, 3. All my levels are good. Stream has started on YouTube. All is good. Hello, everyone. Let's just do this right quick before we get into it. It's a dew, it's not a beer. And some water. Even that out. It's cold and rainy here. I have had a terrible week. But I have been able to go through most of the Rivet Wars stuff that we have. I got through most of it, I would say, yeah. Why aren't you going down to it? Do I still have to scroll, or is it just got to load? It's just got to load. So I've been going through the solo mode. I wanted to make a video on it, but I also want to finish up, and I wanted to do this and that, and just, oh, what a week. I've had a terrible week. Absolutely terrible, terrible, terrible week. So I've actually been really hampered on this 2-week lifeline to give feedback. However, I'm very proud with what I've been able to get through. I've been able to give my first gut feelings as I've been reading through it whenever I have that time here or there. I've got a little bit left to go on the solo game mode, the Colossus stuff, as well as the trait cards. I can't wait to read through them, but I wanted to make sure I got them all correct on this solo game mode. And I talked about doing a stream, and this is actually a good idea. It's just kind of going through the solo mode together. All of us kind of reading through. I've already read through most of this, but we'll kind of just go through it together. I'll keep an eye on my levels, but also the stream. Should I inform people that I am live right now? I don't have a stream share. Why don't I have a stream share? So why don't I take this time that I am struggling and get this a share link. Share link. We'll put it in the Discord real quick. Self-promotion. If anyone's out there. And we'll just go through the Colossus game mode real quick. I think that'll be fun. Alright, so first... Oh, geez, excuse me. Disgusting. So first, this is the, for update 35, it is our kind of first look over all the like PDF kind of stuff that would be coming with the Battle of Rivet, that core game box mode. We've been tearing through it, learning a lot about some of the changes that has come to Rivet Wars. But for right now, we're just kind of going through it. Again, I'm on the solo mode stuff. So let's jump right in. So solo mode allows a singular player to play Rivet Wars against AI opponents, which they refer to as Colossus. These rules can be used to play standalone scenarios or campaign scenarios. In campaign scenarios, and actually a lot of the scenarios in the book, in the scenario book, they have a solo mode Colossus section that kind of gives you extra little rules to update what we're about to read. This is in the alternate game mode packet, the alternative game modes one. So this is going to be covering everything on a big, like, generic circuit, and then each scenario will have specific ones, which we will touch on, but we won't go through all of them. I don't know how much time we'll have. They recommend we start with basic training. Maybe that'll be the one we start with. In solo mode, the AI opponent is always referred to as Colossus, and you will always be referred to as the player. When setting up, follow standard game setup. for Battle Rivet and follow these additional steps. So you're going to choose a faction for you. Who do you want to play as? And choose a faction for Colossus. Who do you want to fight against? Take the miniatures, stat cards, split them up. Gather the trait cards. Return any cards for factions Colossus isn't playing to the game box. Then shuffle the remaining cards to form the trait deck and place it face down near the battlefield. That's this deck of trait cards that I can't wait to get into. I really want to get into that in this stream as long as we don't take too long going through the solo mode stuff. That's one of my last things. I need to do wrap-up phase for the solo mode that I haven't read through yet, and I need to do the trait cards. And then I've basically at least looked through everything once. Some things multiple times. So you got to get your trait cards ready. There's different ones for different factions. So split them up. Only the faction they're playing as. Remove the infantry deployment order cards. Then shuffle the remaining deployment cards to create a deployment deck for Colossus. The infantry deployment order card, I think that is this one. Infantry assault is the first one. I don't know if any other one does that. I think it means this first one, the infantry assault. Remove the infantry deployment order card. Then shuffle the remaining deployment cards to create a deployment deck for Colossus. Place it face down near the battlefield. Then place the infantry deployment card face down on top of the deck. What this is basically saying is for the deployment cards, which we'll talk about, they cover it further down. Make sure this one is the absolute first one that is drawn. It is the easiest one to go with, and it will make sense for a first turn. That's all that rule is saying. Although, this is a good time for us to walk through on stream or on a video that's not stream, how to submit a feedback. The feedback I am feeling right now, me personally, is that remove the infantry deployment order card and shuffle it up. The problem is this is called infantry assault. It doesn't actually match the name. If they mean this exact card or just an infantry deployment card, there could be a few things. Like there's this one. There is Call in the Heroes, which is technically an infantry deployment. Heavy infantry. Like there's different cards. So if they mean this one, it should really quote this card directly. So this is how we're going to submit a feedback on the feedback form. So what we're reading through now is the core rulebook alternative scenarios, alternative play modes. So it's this one. We're going to click next. Which page number is it on? We're going to go page number of the PDF, not what they say down below. So we're on page number 6. Sometimes they line up like that one. It makes it look silly. What paragraph code is this in? Do your best. They only go up to 10 plus, and then they have one for images. So I just basically do it in blocks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I would consider this 8. I'm going to do 8. And then I'm going to try my best to do it as helpful as possible. Since the PDF lets me copy paste some stuff, I will do this. I'll do control copy, and I will paste it in quotes so they know exactly the area in which my question or comment or error thought is going to be in. And since mine's going to be both instances of that, I'm going to be doing that real quick. Because I want to place the infantry deployment card face down on top of the deck. And this way they know exactly what I'm making a comment on. They're going to be able to find it really easily. Even if I screwed up which paragraph it's in, this is going to help me help them understand exactly where I was when I'm about to give my feedback. So my feedback is that they refer to the infantry deployment card needing to be the first card drawn. This title doesn't line up with... Oop, got a little bit of issues there. We'll make sure that we get that with the AI deployment cards we have access to. If it is referring to the card, and then we're going to quote it, infantry assault. Ooh, where are we? Infantry assault. Really should quote it exactly. Otherwise, this could refer to, and then what I'll do is list all of the other cards that I had just mentioned. Again, call in, what is it? Call in the heroes. So this way I'm giving a complete thought to them so that they're not trying to guess what I mean by, where's heavy? Oh, there it is, heavy infantry. So I'm taking the benefit of the doubt to say this could be confusing to someone. This is what my thought pattern is. I'm telling them that, you know, either it needs to quote it directly or this could be interpreted this way. My feedbacks are not, this be dumb, or this card doesn't exist, or whatever. Like, I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just giving a complete thought. This is my thought in the moment. It could be interpreted this way, if you meant it this way, blah, blah, blah. I'm giving them plenty of room to know what my thought was when I left the feedback, when I read this section, and potential fixes or potential more information of like what it could be interpreted as. And I'm not giving them a, you must change it to XYZ. I'm leaving it open for them to look at how they are designing, how they're wording everything, how they want it to be taken. Because all of this is not completed yet. It's very close to completion. But none of, like, this is the tracing on the stone that it's about to be chiseled in. So they may have missed it. They may not see it the same way as me. Or maybe there's things that have been changed that haven't made it into the PDFs we were given. After I'm done, I'm just going to double check, make sure everything is fine. And then I'm going to submit it, submit another response, and I'm ready to continue reading. And it's a good thing to reread if we have time, try to read it multiple times, because I definitely didn't get, like, I understood what this meant, so I did not question to leave a comment my first time through. So that's one of the things where it's like, it's good to reread, it's good for us to pour over these multiple times, and it's good for everyone to read through and give any amount of feedback that you're thinking at a time. Just because you feel this way and you feel that other people think it's dumb, it might not be dumb. It might be something that other people missed. It could be something other people haven't thought about. We all think differently. We all have different levels of background in game design or just playing these kind of games, from years of experience in different game types to you've never picked up a game like Rivet Wars before. So we all have different things. We're all coming from different backgrounds. What is super easy to understand or what is super easy to make jumps in logic for some people could be might as well be French for other people. Like, it really is important that we just try to iron it out so that we have the best book possible going out to all backers. So yeah. So shuffle the deck, place the rate card near the mission cards for the scenario. Place the rate token to 0. This is another card. I probably should have that up for when we're discussing it. So Colossus does not complete missions, not in the same way a human player would. Here we go. Can I do control this? Control shift. Shift this. Uh-oh. Can I flip you? There we go. So Colossus doesn't do missions in the same way. So here they have 5 mission cards. And just at certain rounds, at certain points in the scenario, they get basically a mission card. And it goes up. And I believe it's when they get to 5 they win. They'll talk about it in the wrap-up phase and things. They definitely talk about the rate. But this is the card they're talking about. It'll be a rate card that he gets instead of missions. So for Colossus, there's a time limit on how long games go. So here we go. Make sure it's on 0. Solo mode is like standard Rivet Wars with some differences. Colossus follows a modified set of rules that affects every phase of their turn as detailed in the following pages. That's what we're reading right now, is all the different ways Colossus acts versus a normal opponent in Rivet Wars. Certain scenarios will have additional rules. Yep, we talked about these. Colossus doesn't complete mission cards like a regular player. Instead, they complete mission cards periodically throughout the game. That's that scenario tracker that I just showed. Colossus doesn't acquire or use action cards. They instead gain similar effects through trait card pulling. So they will get trait cards. Again, that's what I want to go through if we have time. Numbered scenario elements. Each scenario has numbered elements such as strategic objectives. These are mainly used when playing as Colossus. It is recommended that players use numbered tokens included with the game to number parts of the battlefield as shown in the scenario setup. Can I bring up the scenario book so that we have examples? I thought I was ready for this stream. Apparently not. But we'll make sure that we have a scenario book up to show what they're talking about so that we can do reference with it with Colossus. Here it is. Taking some time. We'll get there. So they recommend that the first one is basic training, which has a multitude of things. Yeah. So this is what we'll do. We'll have basic training up like that. I'll put it down here with the rule books, trade cards. So these numbered elements you can see are what they're talking about. So when you set up a scenario, you have the deviation cards and unit order cards set up. You have it set up the way that it is described based on the components. But there's also these numbered elements. So each of the deployment zones are numbered. Each of the objectives are numbered. So that will help or hinder. But that's all used with Colossus. Golden Rule. This is a long story short. When playing Rivet Wars against Colossus, the special rule may result in situations arising where there won't be a clear solution. In these instances, you will be required to make a choice for Colossus. In this instance, make the choice that you believe benefits Colossus most. AKA, you are literally playing with yourself with no accountability. There's just some cards and some rules for playing solo. Obviously, you can cheat. The golden rule is it doesn't matter playing with Colossus as your enemy if you're going to cheat. Obviously, you'll win or you'll break the logic setup. So in order for it to work as intended and as tested and run through several, as tested and quality checked, you got to follow the rules. You got to do what's best for them whenever that instance comes up. If you're unsure, make your best guess for them rather than over analyzing the situation. It's more important to keep the game moving than to get focused on every possible option available to Colossus. Do what's best for them. Do your best as if you wanted them to win in those situations, but do not get bogged down by choice. Makes sense. In the end, you are playing by yourself, so it's that kind of that double-edged sword. There is do what's best, but don't get bogged down by if you don't know what the absolute best scenario is. Here we go. Control phase. During the control phase, Colossus draws trait and deployment cards and places a flag token on a strategic objective they currently occupy. That's not new from different rules. To resolve Colossus's control phase, follow the steps. So discard any previous trait and deployment cards. So they don't get to keep trait cards like action cards. So they'll be discarded. Discard the deployment card because they won't be using that again. It'll need to be shuffled back into the deck eventually. Draw a brand new trait card and deployment card. Place flag tokens on each one controlled by Colossus, just like a normal person. Very good. If the trait or deployment card deck runs out of cards, shuffle them from the discard pile and form a new deck with the newly shuffled cards. Easy peasy. All this is understandable. So now they're going to talk about trait cards. The anatomy of trait cards. Trait cards provide Colossus with unique special rules and effects, replacing the action cards and a player would normally use. So we got card name, faction. So certain trait cards have factions. So if they're playing as allies, they're like this one showed. That is only if Colossus is the allies. They are more themed. When we go through the trait cards, we'll go through them. There are also trait cards that are not associated with a faction. Those are for everybody to use regardless of what faction he's playing at the time. So just keep the Nemoan and Blight cards out of the allied deck when they're playing as allies. Simple. And then the effect. What does the trait card do? We'll be going through trait cards. Deployment cards. Deployment cards are determined. Card name, priority. This confused me a little bit because there isn't a priority in any of the examples. And down here below, gotta wait for it to load. All the examples are kind of blued out. So I don't think that this is in this version yet. They're still being finalized, which is fine. But just know that whether Colossus will deploy the highest or lowest cost units available. They'll give us a rundown of an example later on in the pages. So we will go through that example in greater detail when we get to it. Unit type symbols. These are the types of units in the order. It is from top down, which again we'll go through in the example. Rivet token limit. The maximum number of Rivet tokens Colossus may spend on this deployment card or this turn. So Colossus keeps Rivets like a normal player would, but just in case, he has like 5 or 6, like in this example given, the max he would be able to use on going down this line of who to deploy would be 2 Rivets. So it kind of keeps it in check that way. Deployment cards do not make distinction between standard units and hero units. So Colossus will take hero units into account as it would any standard unit of the same type when determining which unit to deploy. My thought process is when they say highest cost cards, I know they literally mean deployment tokens and Rivets, but after you played Colossus for a bit, I would take into effect heroes and units with VPs is holding a higher cost to deploy. And I would probably also lean on those after a few games, after you get the hang of Colossus and you're not strictly following that, try to think about which hero units would be really good to deploy as a more expensive option. Because I think that would be really good for them. Ooh, I've gotten really fat since the last time I've worn this helmet. And it is pressing in on me. Woo. All right, here we go. At the beginning of the deployment phase, Colossus gains deployment points and Rivet tokens, same as a normal player, based on the scenario. These are spent to deploy new units on the battlefield as determined by the card. To resolve the deployment phase for the Colossus, follow the steps. Colossus gains the points and rivets based on the scenario. If Colossus is the first player during the first round, they gain half the listed deployment points rounded up and don't gain any Rivet tokens. This is a new rule for all of Rivet Wars. So if they go first, they're just like a normal player where they go first on that very first round. They get half the resources to deploy units. Draw and resolve a deployment card. So we'll go through that in a second, how you resolve that and go through it step by step. Keep going until Colossus runs out of deployment points, unit type symbols on the deployment card, space in all of their deployment areas, miniatures to deploy entirely, etc. Like, basically, just keep going until there's no possible way they can deploy anymore. It does not make any sense for them to skip a deployment or to not deploy and let deployment points go to waste. So do your best to give them the benefit of the doubt and deploy as much things as possible. Alright. To deploy units for Colossus, refer to the symbols on the cards, starting with the top symbol and move down. So check the priority of the deployment card. We don't have any examples of that, but that's either going to be high or cheap units. Locate the highest or lowest cost, dependent on that priority unit of the type in the reserve. Pay the deployment points and Rivet tokens for that unit. Place the unit onto the battlefield in the highest numbered deployment area first. Repeat steps 2 to 4 until a number of units have been deployed equal to the number shown on the symbol, or until Colossus can't deploy units of that type, and then move on to the next symbol. We will go through this in an example at the end. I missed it the first time. There's a very good example towards the end. Some deployment cards will show unit type symbols not featured in the Battle of Rivet. These are used for units found in expansions. If you do not have the relevant expansion, these symbols are skipped. This isn't in reference to they have air stuff built into the Colossus cards in this base set. So there are some references to air units. We don't have those at this time, so you would just skip those. Do I have an example of that right off the top of my head? I do. So like this one is the new bomber or heavy air unit symbol, because they're now broken up to heavy and light. They have like the scout helicopter here as like a light air unit. They also have this one right here. They have air plugs, just like the classic Rivet Wars had regular plugs and specific air plugs. So those are still in the game. So those references are obviously for air units. Move on to the next symbol. Got it. Deployment priority. We kind of talked about this to death, and it'll be easier in the example. But deployment cards will show 1 or 2 priority symbols. They specify whether it'll be the lowest cost or highest cost unit. Each unit symbol they resolve during that deployment phase. When resolving deployment cards with this symbol, deploy the highest cost unit in the reserve based on deployment points. If Colossus has multiple units of the same deployment point cost, deploy which of these has the highest Rivet token value. So go by deployment points first, then what Rivet token is available. When resolving this symbol, deploy the lowest cost units in Colossus Reserve based on the deployment points. If Colossus has multiple units of the same deployment point, deploy which of those has the lowest Rivet token value. So high and low. I give an example, but they have a whole example down here we're going to go through. So we are going to skip this example for now. It's about deploying a tank and kind of explaining what they mean by highest. But we will go through that in depth down below. Spending deployment points. To deploy units, reduce the number of deployment points a Rivet tokens has by the cost of the unit. Colossus can't spend more Rivet tokens this turn than the limit shown on the deployment card, regardless of the number of Rivet tokens they currently have. We've already kind of talked about this. But they do keep unspent Rivet tokens for future cards. Not all cards have that limit. And that is actually a good thing to ask about. Cards with... Where is it? Cards with no limit. Do they have no limit? Or is the limit they can't spend Rivet tokens? I will read a little bit farther to see if they talk about that. But that is something I want to ask. If that's a limit, or if their limit is... If they don't have one, is their limit 0? We'll talk about that. If Colossus doesn't have any units matching the unit type symbol in their reserve, or doesn't have enough deployment points or Rivet tokens to deploy units of that type, move on to the next symbol. When Colossus deploys a unit, place it in the highest numbered deployment area that has space for that unit. If there's no space for that unit in any of Colossus's deployment areas, the unit can't be deployed, and you would skip it and try a different unit based on that qualification. When deploying a plug, deploy them onto the closest available unit. Oh, we found something. Rereading it out loud. Closest available A unit. And friendly table with an available plug slot. So we're going to do another thing. Alternate play modes next. What page number is it on? We are currently on page 9. Paragraph is it in? Roughly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, we're going to do the same thing that we did with the last one. We are going to quote it so that they know where we're talking about. We'll just let them know. Yeah. There. I think it's just a simple typo. There really isn't anything to do. Either there was a graphic that didn't load, or it's just a typo. It happens. So we'll just notify them of that. Simple typo. And that's it. Alright, so deploy a plug in the closest. We're going to do another one. Because what is closest? Closest to the player. So we're going to see what that is. So this is page 9 again. Let's double check that. Yep. And we said this was the 5th one. So, ooh, we got like 2 in the same little section. Closest to what? To the player, to a deployment token. To the enemy or strategic objective. I'm going to leave this open. They understand, or they will understand what I'm getting at. It's just the closest available unit in friendly territory. So that'll be good. They'll understand what I'm getting at with that. No problem. And maybe that'll need some clarification. Maybe I'm just an idiot. Either can be true. So, Colossus deployment phase will eventually end for one of 4 reasons. They ran out of deployment points. They ran out of unit type symbols. Colossus ran out of space. Colossus ran out of miniatures. I like this redundancy. We've already seen this in at least 2 areas already, but it's in a different format. Like in every part of the book, if you're reading through while you're playing through, you'll have the information you need. I am actually a big fan of that redundancy so that it is crystal clear. Now that we've gone through this, let's go through this big old example they have. So they have pulled the card, Call in the Heroes. We don't know what it is, but they will tell us down below. I think this is highest priority. They'll let us know. We have 2 Rivet limit. This is down here that they have 3 Rivet tokens. It would be interesting if they put 1, 2, 3 Rivet tokens on the side to show like how much they have in reserve. But I guess that's just one more little bit of work that they have to do in formatting to make this all work. I guess it's not that important. So Colossus is playing as the Blight. And they have 5 deployment points and 3 Rivet tokens to spend based on the scenario. The deployment card for this turn prioritizes the highest cost units, but limits them to spending a maximum of 2 Rivet tokens this turn, despite them having 3. So they'll only be able to use 2. That is absolutely fine. The first symbol is the infantry unit. So Colossus deploys the most expensive infantry unit in their reserve, including a hero. This is assuming this is the Battle of Rivet base set. That is a good assumption for them to do in the rulebook. Just to throw that out there. The most expensive unit in this type that Colossus can afford to deploy is either Major Jaeger Moldenston or Gaston Tenkin. As both cost the same amount, the player follows the golden rule and opts for Major Jaeger Moldenston to be deployed, spending 3 deployment points and 1 Rivet token on that deployment. And as we know, it's not said here, but as we know, they will deploy that in, it's behind my camera. They'll deploy that in the highest marked deployment zone first. So that means he'll put a Jaeger Moldenston in this deployment zone first. The infantry unit symbol shows 2, so a second infantry unit must be deployed. So we see that little 2. So we deployed 1. However, the most expensive infantry unit they can now afford to deploy is a Panzerfaust, spending 1 deployment point and 0 rivets. So they will deploy that. Again, there's space for it in the highest amount, so it would be in this number 2 slot, that highest amount. Colossus then moves on, because it was 2 up here, then moves on to the other unit type symbols. They can skip the support and cavalry and light aircraft unit symbols, as they don't have any of these unit types that they can afford to deploy from their reserve with only the remaining single deployment point and 1 Rivet token. So it's the base set. They don't have the scout thing. Is that what they called it? Light aircraft. So they don't have a light aircraft. With support and cavalry, there's none that cost only one deployment point with the mono wheels and Schlitten and things of that nature. So this leads them back to the final infantry at the bottom, which has a thing of 4. The most expensive one that they can spend is, again, a Panzerfaust. So they'll spend that one deployment point getting the Panzerfaust, which they will, again, put right in the number 2 slot, which is the highest. So they have 3 infantry units in there at the moment. At this point, Colossus stops deploying units due to being out of deployment points and not having any units that only cost a single Rivet token. Ooh, are they going to get mad at me for mentioning that? The Ruska had their infantry could be deployed with either 1 deployment point or 1 Rivet. So if it was them playing, they would be able to deploy 1 Rivet worth of their smallest infantry. We don't know what future factions will have or look like. So, but that is an option. But because they have nothing else, we've reached the end. They're kind of out of all their points. So, the deployment ends. Right at the end, many scenarios will see Colossus gaining or losing deployment tokens. When a new deployment token is added, number it on the higher than the current highest numbered deployment token. When Colossus removes a deployment token, if multiple deployment tokens fit the criteria, remove the highest numbered deployment token first. So, if we are adding a new one, let's say we're in a scenario where we add one into our bunker when we get a certain amount of points. We have 1, we have 2. We would add 3 into this bunker. And that's how that would work. If we are removing some because things are moving, the first one we would remove is number 2. And then we'd be left with this one left. Very simple. Very, very simple. Excuse me. Jeez. I wonder if I'm doing okay. I might take off this helmet. Ooh. It's really pressing on my brain. I've gotten real fat since the last time I wore that helmet. All right. So, combat phase. During the combat phase, the units make their attack one at a time. Each unit may only make its attack once per turn. Ooh, excuse me. So, we select the area containing Colossus units that are farthest away from your own units. So you're going from the back forward as Colossus. Whichever way makes more sense. Their farthest away units attack first. Select unit that needs to attack using the attack sequence. Remember to apply the golden rule if necessary. Continue selecting units until every unit in the area has attacked. Repeat steps 1 to 3 until all the areas containing Colossus units have attacked. Obviously, if they can't attack, they can't attack. So you would move on to the next one. Check the range of the attacking unit and select an area using Colossus's target priority. Check Colossus's unit for any special rules and buffs that affect attacks. Choose which of Colossus unit's attack profiles it will use using Colossus's attack priority and check it for any special attack symbols. These are things like blast attacks, gas attacks, anything of that nature. Using the targeting card, identify which of your units the attack will target. Check your unit for any special rules and buffs and that will affect attacks. Compare your unit's armor class to the attack profile to see how many D6s Colossus will roll. Roll the dice. If the attack hits, cause a point of damage to your own unit. If the attacking unit can make more than one attack, repeat these steps until all the attacks have been made. So this is all very simple, very easy. Colossus attack priority. Give me 1 second. Let me just double check how we're doing for time. We've been going on for quite a while. I haven't even gotten to my new stuff. All right. When Colossus chooses units to attack, it will use this priority. So it's looking for enemy units on a strategic objective. Enemy units that Colossus will roll the highest number of dice against. And then after that, it's just looking for the closest enemy unit that it can hit. Going through those, there should be some reason they can hit someone with that. If there are no enemies that can be damaged within the unit's range, the unit uses the action on its card if it has one. Otherwise, the unit doesn't attack this turn. Colossus attack priority. Colossus units has multiple attack profiles listed on their stat card. Start with the attack listed on the top and work downwards. If Colossus unit has an attached plug with an attack profile, Colossus will attack with the unit first and then the plug second. Ooh, that's very interesting. I always do them in a different order. When choosing a unit to attack with, choose them in the order that allows all units to be able to attack as effectively as possible, or that allows them to make the most use of their special rules. This will be things like if they can't hit, if a Panzerfaust can't hit, that's a bad example. If the Schlitten can't hit the Riflemen because they're hiding behind a rocket cycle, you would instead attack with the Panzerfaust first, and then the rocket cycle to try, or the Schlitten, just to make more use of everyone's abilities, rather than saying, "Oh, they can't attack," so nothing's coming of that. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Spoke too much. This is literally the next example they were given. So Colossus, as the allies, is attacking with an area with 2 riflemen and a rocket cycle. The riflemen can't damage the monowheel Dragoon in areas 1 and 3, as their attack profiles give them no dice against that armor class of 2. Instead, the rocket cycle should attack first to attempt to destroy the monowheel with both of its attacks. If the monowheel Dragoon is destroyed, now the riflemen are able to attack the Panzerfaust. So this is kind of blocking these 2 units. So you want to attack first to try to knock this one out, so that these 2 get their full chance against these 2. Easy breezy, beautiful cover girl. Now we're on to the movement phase. Let's see if we can get through this. During the movement phase, Colossus moves each of their units one area at a time, starting with the area closest to Colossus deployment. To resolve the movement phase, follow these steps in order. Select an area containing units that belong to Colossus. Check any buffs that would affect movement to units in that area. Select a unit in the area. That unit may move up to its move value. Repeat steps 3 until you move every unit. Repeat step 1 to 4 until you've selected all of their units and move them. Rearrange units belonging to Colossus. I'm assuming that in the best order possible. So protecting heroes behind other units, protecting infantry behind higher armored units, etc. Whenever you're moving, use the following movement priorities. Infantry. Move towards the closest strategic objective that doesn't contain a friendly unit or a flag token. If there are multiple closest strategic objectives, move toward the highest numbered of those strategic objectives first. If Colossus has a friendly unit or a flag token on every strategic objective, move the infantry unit using the other unit type's priority below. So for everyone else, or if they're dominating, Move the unit towards the closest enemy unit that it can cause damage to. If there are no damageable enemy units on the battlefield, move the unit towards the closest enemy deployment area. Absolutely vicious. So there'll be no blight wall with Colossus. They are on the invasion path. When moving Colossus's units, don't move their units into squares. Focus. Into squares that would cause damage to them, such as minefields or gas tokens, unless it's the only option available. So this is going to be our next thing that we're going to be doing. So the reason why I'm going to be giving a feedback on this one is because they used the language, don't move their units into squares that would cause damage to them, such as blah, 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 blah. What they mean to say is areas. They've changed around the names a few times. So what used to be called grids is now called areas. The squares within those areas or in the grids are now squares. What they mean to say is they can't move into areas that would cause damage. So I'll just quickly copy this. What paragraph? 1, 2, 6 is 8, 9. So this is going to be like 10 plus. 10 plus. That's why we do this. So that they know clear as day what we're doing. Submit. All right. There are a lot of those. Keep your eyes out as you're looking through stuff. Squares, areas, those kind of stuff keeps getting flip-flopped. So keep an eye out for that. All right. Rearrange areas with Colossus units using the allied side of the targeting card. Place units with the higher armor classes in lower numbered squares than the units with lower armor classes. Excuse me. If there are different unit types with the same armor class, place any infantry units in higher numbered squares. Very simple. Very simple. Doesn't this art look great, though? Can we just take a break, even though we've been doing this for a while, and just say that this art looks fantastic? I'm a little bummed out that I haven't seen any comics, but I'm assuming that's just one of the last things to go in is the comic panels that they've been working on. I hope, knock on wood. Here we go, the wrap-up phase. During the wrap-up phase, Colossus gains victory points for each strategic objective they occupy and manages their mission cards. To resolve the wrap-up phase, follow these in order. Remove your flag tokens from strategic objectives occupied by Colossus units. Colossus gains VPs for strategic objectives they occupy. There should also be or have flags in. Right? Should this not? I feel like this should. Maybe. I will submit it. And if I'm wrong, or if they're like, that's not what that means, it doesn't hurt. 1, 2, 3, 4. What are you doing, Nate? Focus. There. Another one in the books. Alright. I move the rate token one space up the rate card. Check mission rate. Check victory conditions for the scenario. Colossus scoring strategic objectives. Colossus scores 1 VP for each strategic objective occupied by their units, flag tokens, or both. Instead of completing missions like a regular player, Colossus completes mission cards periodically throughout the game. This is controlled by the mission rate for the scenario, as well as the rate for the scenario, as well as the rate card and token. During the wrap-up phase, the rate token moves one space up the rate card. Then the player checks the mission rate for the scenario. If the rate token is on the space indicated by the scenario, place a flag token on the leftmost mission card that does not have one of Colossus's flag tokens and reset the rate token to 0. Oh, I see. Oh, very cool. So if we went to basic training, solo rules, mission rate 3. So what this means is for every wrap-up phase, let's go back to here. Starts at 0. So for every wrap-up phase, it would move up 1. So every time it hits 3, it gets reset, and you put a flag token on. And then it goes up 1, 2, 3. That's 6 rounds. It would get 2. That's 9 rounds and go 1. Okay, so it's not that hard. So it's not 5 total rounds and then you're done. It's based on the rate. Very interesting. So this rate is 3. Oh, we're going to have all these issues. This rate is 3. This rate is 3. Are there any that aren't 3? I'm assuming if I went really down into scenarios, this isn't a scenario review, but I do want to see what the other rates are. So we're getting into, I don't have my glasses here. My glasses. This mission rate is nothing. 3. What's the last one? Well, they're just leaving that open-ended, so maybe down the line, custom ones or something could be a different mission rate. Mission rate 3. A lot of these seem to be 3, which would still give you 9 rounds of trying to get victory points or complete objectives before they win via this mission rate. That feels really fair. Unless it was a very big, like 10 VP game. That feels pretty fair. And that's just at 3. That's not even at 5. This is pretty open for pretty big games. All right. Yeah. Yeah. All right. That's good. That's good. All right. Refer to the scenario to see if Colossus has enough VPs to win or has met any of the other scenario-specific victory conditions. If Colossus meets the victory conditions of the scenario, they win. Otherwise, play continues. If the player has not taken their turn this round, they do so. If both Colossus and the player have taken their turns, the round has ended. Modify solo mode difficulty. When playing with Colossus, you may find they are too easy or too difficult in your games, and you may wish to make the following changes to tailor the difficulty to provide a more fun experience for yourself by making any of the following changes. To reduce the difficulty of Colossus, decrease the number of deployment points Colossus gains. That's a pretty easy way to, like, if you're really if you're training a new player and you are very good, giving yourself even a single less deployment point really can change the feel of a lot of the base scenarios. So that's a pretty standard way. Increase the mission rate of the scenario. That's right. I think 3 is 9 rounds. I think that's already pretty good. Like, someone's winning by victory points. However, increasing that, increasing it by 1 would... I mean, most scenarios are 3 cards. So that is, like, exponentially increasing the amount of rounds it takes. That is crazy. That is pretty crazy. That is a good way to do it. Basically, you don't want them to win that cheat way. Crank that up to 5, or even just take it out of the game altogether. Decrease the number of missions needed for the player to win the game. This is something else I was thinking of. Is like, hey, just complete 2 missions and you win as well. Increasing the difficulty is increasing the number of deployment points Colossus gains. I don't like this as a harder, but yeah, that would definitely make it harder. Decrease the mission rate for the scenario. This feels like, you know, turn that up. Like, you need to move. You need to win and dominate by victory points, or you absolutely need to get on the missions and doing them as quickly as possible to get 3 before them. Even moving that down to 2 would, again, I guess it's an exponential decrease in the other direction. Going from 9 to going to 6 rounds. That's a pretty big difference when you're when you're doing these kind of game stuff. Increase the number of missions needed for the player to win the game. Very easy. I would also suggest things like removing their limit on Rivet tokens if they are doing the most expensive units. That's a good one. Limiting the amount of, like, units the player can play as, while letting them have access to as many players as they can. Giving them, we have 1 neutral unit with the Viking guy, Hammerson, or whatever his name is, giving him to the other player, giving him to Colossus and not using him yourself. That, you don't know how that would affect the game. There are so many ways to change the way a Rivet Wars game could work or swing one way or another. It truly could be giving them something as simple as using, it looks like we're getting standalone trench tiles, so using one of those to give him extra trenches on his side of the board, increasing his territory, so there's more territory for them to spawn like plugs. Like, there's so much that could affect a Rivet Wars game harder or easier. That's it. We did it. We got through the solo mode. We got through Colossus. Woo! Which means there's only one thing left. I think this is literally it. Last thing that I need, and then it's just rereading and re-looking through and rethinking about everything. All right. So these are the trait cards. These are what they're using instead of action cards. These are trait cards. So we have clear. So these, all these ones have no faction. So these are the open for. They use them all the time. Clear them out. When Colossus units attack an infantry unit, they roll +1 die this turn. All of when Colossus's units attack units, they roll +1 die this turn. So all of them. That is, oh geez. All right, so that's crazy. So all units get a +1. So there's also a new rule where if a unit has a 0 dice against a certain armor type, nothing can turn that to a +1. It only affects, like, they need to be able to hit them to begin with in order to get buffs to hit them. Another thing, I kind of disagree with that. But something like this, I guess, just makes an infantry killer that much better. Tank Buster. When Colossus units attack a tank unit, they roll +1 die this turn for all their units. This is rough. Yeah. Production line. Colossus gains +1. I don't know what that symbol is. I don't know what this symbol is at all. I'm going to really quickly snip this out and ask anyone. But this is going to be a feedback, I guess. Because I don't know what this symbol is at all. I'm going to put this in Discord. If you're watching the Discord, you'll see this in a bit. Yeah. So we'll give that a feedback real quick. So this is type of cards. These are AI trait cards. It's the front of the card. This is how I do cards. Yeah, I don't know what that symbol's for. Because it could be, just based off the symbol alone, it could be +1 deployment points, +1 speed, +1 specialty, +1... I don't know. I don't know what that symbol is. Yeah, I just don't know what that symbol is. It makes sense for it to be... For production line, it makes sense for it to be deployment points. Or rivets or something. I don't know. Take and hold. Colossus's non-hero infantry units gain +1 movement this turn. That makes sense. I'm a little worried that so many of these cards are like all of Colossus's units get this. Because there isn't like an action card that's, oh, all of my infantry get special movement. Like it's choose one to gain this benefit, or choose a area where everyone in that gains this benefit. Rivet Rain. Colossus gains +1 rivets this turn. That's a rivet thing. So that's not whatever this is. That makes sense. Feet on the ground. Colossus gains +2 blank this turn. That can only be spent on infantry units. So that must be an older version of deployment points. Yeah, this seems to be unused, because that's the only thing that would make sense. And then production line would be just gain an extra deployment point this turn. I mean, all that would make sense to me. Split deployment. During this deployment phase, Colossus deploys their units as follows. In order of highest to lowest, numbered deployment squares. Colossus deploys a unit on each friendly deployment square. When Colossus has deployed a unit on each deployment square, repeat this until Colossus can't deploy any more units. What does this mean? In order of highest to lowest deployment squares. So this is deployment areas on the map. Right? Or yeah, see, these are the new deployment tokens. Come on. Unit type symbol. No, it's not that. It's not these. Don't know what that means. I don't get what split deployment is. All right. Here, we'll use an example from one of the cards to make this a little easier. This thing to deploy on, what was it? Infantry assault. Man, why isn't this working like the other one was, where I could see everything? And we need to go right back in. Because again, they use square instead of deployment. Alright. Alright, we'll give up on this. I'm obviously not getting split deployment. Sorry about that. That's not interesting to watch, especially after an hour in. You're probably like, oh, I'm so done with this guy, but, whoo, alright. 2 Colossus units. Hunker down. The 2 of Colossus's units closest to enemy deployment square gain a shield token. That's very interesting. See, I think there's a hunker down action card where you give it out to only 2 infantry in trenches. But this is like, it could be 2 tanks that are closest. Maybe they just charged ahead. Maybe it's a Blight Sturmpanzer who couldn't attack, who just kept dashing, and stormed ahead. So now they have 2 shields. Like this is probably why Colossus is so hard to beat. These are like getting massive game-changing perks each round. This is a powerful one. Very interesting. I'm so interested. I can't wait to get a deck and actually like see how many of each card is in the deck. And then also like give this a shot. Like that's so crazy. Oh, alright. So now we're in the Blight cards. You can tell this by the Blight token. Gas vents. Place a face-up gas token on each strategic objective that isn't occupied by one of Colossus units or flag tokens. Holy crap! Again, this is so powerful. Okay. Until Colossus' next turn, their units gain immune to gas. Holy crap! Immune to gas, this unit takes no damage from gas attacks or tokens. Yeah, see? Just game changer. Ooh, gas grenades. Colossus's infantry units add gas to their attacks this turn. Until Colossus's next turn, their units gain immunity to gas. Very, very interesting. Wow. And their Blight. That's really powerful. I guess the bonus for this is any allied unit that is... But... Oh. I guess it doesn't say that they get the choice for them not to be gas. So I guess that means that the Panzerfaust all have gas attacks now. And the way the rules work, that means they wouldn't be able to attack most of the heavy armors like tanks. Because they all have some form of immunity to gas, or most of them do. So, that's what's so big about the Baron Munchen guards, is that they have that ammo type special that lets them choose. Because you want them to still be able to hit tanks with their normal attacks. But they don't do so well against infantry, which you could choose to be a gas cloud, which would do much different damage as a gas cloud. So that would be very interesting. And this doesn't give them that option. But for most of the games that you're going to be playing like this, that wouldn't be a godsend. That would be the Panzerfaust raining gas onto objectives and into bunkers and all over the place. Ooh, very interesting. Gas tanks. Until Colossus' next turn, when one of their units is destroyed, place a face-up gas token on its square. Oh, that's cool. I love the flavor. I do have to admit I love the flavor. I love that there's a lot of gas stuff with the Blight. I'm really loving the flavor with this. Until Colossus' next turn, their units gain immunity to gas. Got it. Immunity to gas, and explains it. Awesome. Now let's figure out how allies are overpowered. Quick off the mark. After a unit is deployed in Colossus' deployment phase this turn, move them as if it were the movement phase. These units don't move during the movement phase. So giving all units that are deployed during the deployment phase rapid assault with their movement. Wow. Okay. It's not going to be overly helpful depending on the scenario. We've been using this as an example scenario. That would be crazy. I mean, even a hammer pounder going 1 right from the get-go and then having 1, 2, 3, 4 can hit all of this area from here. That's pretty strong. I'm not here. I'm in the trait card. Very interesting. That's not the worst that it could be. Paratroopers. Any of Colossus infantry units deployed this turn are deployed on the lowest numbered enemy or empty strategic objective. Oh. Wow. Resolve deviation. Units deployed this way and deploy them in new squares. Very cool. So in this example, that would be really crappy because you would do the lowest numbered. So it would be this one that you're deploying them on. And they can deviate off the map. And then they're gone. But, I mean, even being able to deploy here, here, here. Like, a lot of that would be good. And a lot of that's... Oh, they don't do missions. What am I thinking? That's cool and very thematic. Sudden assault. During this turn, friendly infantry units without rapid assault gain rapid assault 2. Alright, a lot of movement-based stuff for allies. Rapid assault 2, and it goes on to explain it. Alright, so I like it. I like a lot of the themes. I think everything else I say still stands. But these themed cards are really good. I'm a little, I think, disappointed that there's only 3 themed ones with each one. Although I guess there'll be duplicates of these, depending on how big the card stack is. But wow, very interesting. Whew, it really is very interesting. And I have no notes for these besides the fact that I think this is the old deployment token. The old deployment token thing. Yeah, and now that's it. That's it. I have at least looked over everything. I've at least looked over everything. That feels so good. Well, I guess that's it. I'm super happy to have made this stream and got it out there for you guys to see. Then we got to review this. I'm very excited for the solo mode. I think Colossus is just really cool, really thematic. I'm very excited to see how it is to play. Jamie said that it was very hard in a lot of their testing. And it took a lot of testing to bring them to a more reasonable level. But if you follow it to the nose, this is probably a really good way to learn how to counter certain groups. Like if you have someone who always plays allies, playing solo with Colossus will really show you how to adapt against certain allied strategies. And basically shore up your own defenses. There's certain things that don't really make sense, but you're not playing a person. You're playing an AI, and as long as you're not doing a weird niche strategy to try to break the kind of rules that have been set up, this appears at the basic of levels to simulate a game of Rivet Wars quite well, if not be pretty challenging. I'm going to be playing the heck out of this, probably on the channel. This will probably be how I cover each scenario and do a small review of it, is playing solo mode on that scenario and recording it. I'm very excited for this. There's a lot of questions up in the air, but this is just a review. Most of this is done, but there's still wiggle room to iron out some things now that we as outsiders can finally get our eyes on it. I am not upset with what I've seen from the solo mode. I think these are really well done. I think it's very thematic. I really like it. I'm very interested in seeing what comes from this in the final game, and I'm very interested in getting my hands on it and getting a chance to look through everything. I'm very excited for this. I truly am. With that, I will tell you that there isn't much time left as of this stream. It is Wednesday, the 25th, is the last day, or it goes up until then. Probably to be safe, let's just assume that it is Tuesday, the 24th, is the last day to get your feedback in. So pour over these books, read through the scenarios, read through the core books. We've been talking about this kind of stuff on the Discord, and talking over all the things we find, all the new art, all the new rule kind of interpretations and things, going through some of the actual new stuff and more of the going through some of the stuff that's been nailed down and more clearly explained. I think that these are really well written. Some stuff is confusing, like we found that thing today that I was just really confused on how that worked. However, most things are pretty thoroughly explained. I might have questions about them, but like I know what the intent is to run it as. I'm really excited by some of the changes, especially since my private interpretation of some of the classic Rivet Wars rules have been ironed out, and I actually think that it adds a lot to the game. Like I feel like I was missing a lot of Rivet Wars with certain changes not being assumed, I guess. I found out I was in the minority. But I'm just really excited to see, what this ends up being. I really want to see more. I'm really excited for this. So, again, go through it. Give feedback where you can. Ask questions. Look through things. There's so much to look through. There are unit cards and stats, which I will definitely be coming over again. There are the rule books, which have so much in them. This is the alternative rules section. There's all these things that are just so interesting to see. I don't know what else to say, so I'm going to let the stream catch up to where I am. And I'm going to do that by seeing this in the preview in YouTube. And after that, I will shut it down when I see that. I know this means the stream is done. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Hopefully there'll be actual videos and things. I'll be doing some shorts. Trying to get some shorts out there. Whew, it's been a long day. All right, let me do this. Boop, boop, boop. There we go. All right, bye, guys. If I see that, I'll know that it's goodbye time. Man, I talked a long time. This stream's taking forever. How long has this been live? You lied to me, YouTube. You lied to me. Alright, bye everyone.